Hi, and welcome to the Joy training session, Building the Perfect Conference Program. So, what is the perfect conference program and how do we get there? How do you decide what elements you want to include in your conference program, and equally difficult, what elements you're going to leave out? How do you know if the conference is going to be a success? Which of course then prompts the question, what does conference success look like? So every organization will have its own idea on this and probably its own metrics around this. But for the sake of this demo, we're going to use as our conference success attendance, experience, and objectives. Attendance being number of people who attended the conference, bums on seats. The experience, how they rated the conference. So getting those eval forms and seeing what they gave each session. And also, did you achieve the conference objectives? The two most common metrics used are attendance and experience, and for good reason, because they are the easiest metrics to measure. Attendance, you count everyone. Experience, you collect up the eval forms. Objectives, they can be more difficult, more subjective. How do you measure brand awareness, brand advocacy, etc.? And also the fact that objectives can take time to measure. So it could be 2 or 3 months before you see a result on that. Just as a conference tip, if you do want to make your conference objectives easier to measure, we do have a method of defining or changing the process in defining those objectives. And that is by changing it to asking the question, rather than what is your conference objectives to your committee, ask them the question, what do you want the audience to do as a result of attending the conference? This is a great question because it gets specific. It's unambiguous. And it means that the do answers are measurable. So the do could be attend a meeting, or it could be renew your subscription. It's not easy to set do's, but if you do, then you will find it a very useful process for two reasons. One, because it gives you clear, definable, measurable objectives from your conference. And two, it really helps you create a program that will achieve those do's specifically. We do have quite an extensive process on developing not only the conference objectives, but also the content to deliver on those objectives. If you'd like to know more, you can contact us at Joy. So what can we do with this information? What can we do with the fact that we know that we want conference success looks like attendance, experience, and objectives? Well, that then translates into a decision-making criteria as to what we put into the conference. So is the element that we want to put into the conference a draw card? Will it actually improve attendance? Will it be a great experience? And will that element actually help achieve objectives? The interesting thing about asking those questions is that they're not necessarily compatible. A great draw card, like a celebrity speaker, might be an okay experience, but do nothing to get your objectives. Even worse, it might be a terrible experience. Then again, those elements you want to bring in to actually achieve your objectives, they might not be such a draw card, or indeed they might not be such a crash shot experience. So it's a careful balance. A careful balance that you can only get right in the planning process. And how can you actually use this information in the planning process? Well, let's start looking at how you can plan that conference in Joy. Let's go now to the Joy homepage and create our event. So we're going to be doing the Conference of Joy, and I'll create that event. We're in the planning process. The scenario here is that you've got a room full of people or a committee, probably unlikely to be a room at the moment, more of a virtual meeting committee, and you want to start building out that program and you want to make sure that program is successful. How can you do it? Well, if you're a user of Joy, you'll know that Joy actually builds out by room location when you build the program. So traditionally, you might be looking at putting in a plenary room. I'll just condense that because I'm going to add a few more room locations. You've got a breakout. You can have a social event as well. So you might have a dinner, which is going to be in a separate location. So you're going to create that program. So that's one way of doing it. But this means you're putting everything in by time and by date and location. And you might not be ready to actually have that sort of information at hand. Plus the fact you really want to focus on the content, not on logistics at the moment. So one other way you can approach the whole thing is by using Joy as really your planning tool and your playing tool, your play area on getting your conference right. So here we've got must-haves. Change that to must-haves. You're normally thinking of plenary ideas. Then often you're thinking of experiential or engagement ideas. By this way, we can start actually adding sessions and grouping things. So your must-haves might be the award ceremony. And you go, oh, we also need to put the CEO update in there as well. Your plenary ideas might be something on the pandemic, because that's, really popular at the moment. Experiential. We've got a virtual audience or we've got a hybrid audience. How are we going to do that? Buddy system with live and virtual. You can really start playing around and adding more and more and more to these sessions. And as you build it out, you can actually then start judging if this stuff is going to be any good or not. And you know that working with committees, deciding on what's good for one person might not be so good for another. So here we've got the awards. You can see that I've applied labels to some of these sessions. And I can start rating them, going, I'll actually just show you how those go on. So a charity activity, we're looking at that. You go into here to labels, and I've created all these labels. You can create or add as many labels as you want in Joy. So here I've created labels: excellent, draw cards, experience objective, good, okay, not good, got no choice, or it's sponsored and it's paid. So here, charity activity, is it a good, it's not an excellent draw card. I'll put it as a good draw card. Is it a good experience? It's an excellent experience. People feel really good about it. Will it do anything to achieve my objectives? Well, we're talking about brand advocacy. Then for objectives, I'm going to give it a good. So I've rated that, and I can rate that with my whole group, because it's got a green in there and no okays. I can go brilliant. As far as my experiential engagement activities, I'm going to stick it at the top there. Likewise, something fun with live and virtual audience. I'm going to go, yeah, that's got to be something we prioritize in that. Something on the pandemic, I start rating that. The interesting thing here is with your rating, as you discuss it, you might change the rating, because you go, well, it's an excellent draw card if I get the right person speaking, like Dr. Norman Swan. But if I get a year out doctor talking on it, who no one's heard of, then it's not going to be a good draw card. So you can discuss and play around with your content. Oh, I was just going to go, we're going to get Norman Swan, so it's going to be excellent. Do done and go, yep, that one moves up to the top of my list here. And you can go across everything. You can look at what you want as educationals. You can look at your speaker applications and go, cable connectors, it's really not very good, but they're going to pay an awful lot of money to be there. So I've got to put that in. And that goes to the top of, that goes to the top of my list because I want the money. So it's a lovely way to play with the or communicate with your broader community and your committee and actually sort out what you want. Once you've done that, you can actually start building it out. So here I've got a random room location I put in. Let's call that breakout. And now I can actually start allocating things that I think are going to be in that breakout and drag them across. The Joy roadmap might be in a breakout, things like that. So you can see how easy it is to play with the whole program and play around with it. And once you're moving from the deciding what you're going to have in and rating it all, it's very easy then, because you can slide everything around, it's very easy then to move into the, well, I'm building out the program. So here I've started building out my plenary. I've started putting in morning tea breaks, actually putting some timing on it, and I can start fleshing it out and putting presenters into this. So my roadmap suddenly goes, oh, I'm going to put it in the plenary. You'll see I've changed the labels on it from being the labels that are related to whether it's good activity have or not. I've made that decision. I can just go in and change the labels to be whatever I want. As soon as you update a tick on these labels, it'll override any other labels you got there. So it's easy for me then to actually start categorizing things, putting things in breakouts, playing around with flow, and seeing where I want elements to fall. Obviously, timing flows through. So if I change something at the beginning, make that 12 o'clock, that automatically flows through to everything. I'll change that back to 1400 because I don't want to change my program. I've got it just so I want. You, of course, can also add days, add sessions in the middle as well, or out of sessions. Just a note on out of sessions, you'll notice that I've created an experience zone here, and that's where I've got my registration and I'm doing all my catering. So I've got morning tea there at 10:45. So in the plenary, which is in the morning, the breakouts are in the afternoon, I've put in an out of session at 10:45. So I know in the program and also in my planning in the on-site schedule that that room's going to be empty from 10:45 to 11:15 because they're over here having morning tea. So now I'm comfortable with the actual content, and I know what it's going to do for objectives and whether it's going to do as a draw card, etc. I'm comfortable that my program is working. I can, really finesse the timings, get my flow really right. Talk about the speakers, performers. We know that Dave is fabulous, so I'm going to add Dave as a speaker on this one. Which of course then instantly transforms over here to my performer management window. And if I go to Dave, I can go, cool, what's Dave on, and collaborating to make it happen. So not only have you built out the program that you want, but you've actually, without even really thinking about it, started developing out and building out the logistical side of it as well. Couple of things here. So one, we had the committee meeting. The first committee meeting, we were deciding on what was going to be in the program. The second one, we can start building out actually what it's going to look like, the timing and the flow. Once we've done that, we can actually share it with people if we want. We go, cool, well, let's publish that. And I can actually send everyone a URL of the full program. So my committee members, if I just want to copy a URL for that program, they can't change anything. But if they get that in a new tab, they'll see the program and they'll be able to look at the program and play around with it, make comment on it. But at least they have an up-to-date version of the program instantly. So you don't get this situation where you're in a meeting, people have decided on the program, you've sorted it out. Someone then goes away and has to make that into a pretty PowerPoint presentation or an Excel spreadsheet, and people don't remember it quite correctly. And by the time they get it, they've changed their mind. It's instant. You decide on your program, you move things around, you can just send everyone out the schedule. Of course, if they're in the workforce, then they can see the whole program anyway, and they can see everything they need to do. Likewise, of course, you can add people's tasks as you go through it. So you've now built out your conference. You're pretty happy with it. You're ready to advertise it. As I showed you before, you've got the publish. That publish, it has actually you can embed it in a program. So here I've got an embed URL. I just copy that URL into a website, and lo, I get the Joy layout. If I wanted to play around with the look and feel, then I can use a JSON feed, give it to a web developer, and you can make it look any way you want. But this is Joy out of the box. Separates out my speakers for me, my sponsors, my program, and you'll notice here it's got the filter. So those labels I've put on there, you can actually filter on that as a potential attendee and have a look at what's in the production masterclass. So the other thing I can do is, as I said, you've already started building out the schedules. If I go to on-site schedule, I can see my whole program, but Joy allows me to then start adding activities to set up, run, and pack down the event. These activities I can make available to people. Like, so for instance, this activity here, I put a label on it called media, so I can filter by that. Likewise, you can tag. So I could tag a performer to it. Let's tag myself to that. That means that once you've tagged someone to it, it will appear in their schedule. So you're doing all of this. If you think in a normal circumstances, how many spreadsheets and documents you'd have to reference for this. In Joy, it just is all seamless. It all joins together. So when I look at that, I'll look into myself as a performer. I go to the performer brief, look at Rob Vass, and look at my schedule. And that schedule is updated with whatever photo shoot guest arrival is updated with whatever I got. I can send this to the performer as a URL, which stays live. So anytime there's a change in Joy to that schedule will be reflected in the URL. You've also got this subscribe to calendar, which I did before I updated. But here you can click on the subscribe to calendar. You copy that URL, pop it in your client, and there you go. You're getting the live straight from Joy, the whole schedule. I change something in Joy, and that's going to appear in the calendar. With Microsoft, there's normally about a 10 or 15 minute delay between something changing in Joy and it updating in your calendar, but that's easily manageable. The fact is, you are in the performer or anyone that you're working with at the event. You can give them a calendar subscription and they've got their own calendar entries for the whole of the Joy event. Get the full details on anything that you put in there by clicking through the calendar and clicking back to the Joy URL. So in putting together the perfect program, there are a couple of things to consider. One is making sure your content is right. And you get your content right by actually going through that whole rating process and deciding on what's going to be an excellent experience. If you can get everything green, you know you're going to have a great conference. Then secondly, you actually deal with the logistics, because we know the best ideas can fall apart if they're not delivered well. And Joy means that nothing can really be forgotten, because as soon as you move things around, you know that the information that everyone receives will only be the latest information. Because Joy, you're all working on the same page, because there is only one page. just a quick reminder on Joy and how to get there. If you're not a user of Joy already, go to the website www.joy.events. You can click on a 30-day free trial, no credit cards required or anything. You can create as many events, invite as many people to the workforce, play around as much as you like. If you want a hand on the way through, you can always book a demo. One of the team will pick that up and arrange a time with you, or you can select your own time, and we'll be there to demo and answer any questions you may have. So thank you very much for your time. I hope that has been productive, and I look forward to seeing you in Joy.